the original thoughts of the young father who was going to war, not sure that he was going to come back. And then you have the grizzled veteran, right? With 25 or 30 years behind him, being able to reflect.
Here was the original journal with all my writings inside.
Yeah.
And it was just a daily journal entry on something. I mean, I would wake up in the morning, as I explained in the book, and just think, what do I know? What do I want Scott and Todd to know about their dad if I don't return?
Welcome back to Raising Men. Today on the Raising Men podcast, we're joined by somebody who spent nearly 4 decades leading soldiers in some of the most demanding environments on Earth. Lieutenant General Mark Hertling commanded the U.S. Army in Europe, led the legendary 1st Armored Division in combat, and spent years shaping how the Army trains and develops young leaders. But behind the rank and responsibility is also a father who wrote letters to his sons while deployed to war, letters about courage, about character, about fear, and the kind of men he hoped they would become if he didn't make it home. These are all detailed in his new book, If I Don't Return, A Father's Wartime Journal. In this conversation, we're going to explore what military leadership can teach us about raising boys, the difference between toughness and resilience, and the values fathers must model if we want to raise strong, thoughtful men. General Hertling, thank you so much, and welcome to Raising Men.
Shaun, it is great to be with you. I've heard about this podcast, and I just think it's a wonderful opportunity for young parents to understand some things they might want to do versus just buying a dog and trying it out on the dog like a lot of parents do. Right?
You know, I remember walking into the hospital while my wife was in labor and realizing, oh, wait a minute, my life is about to be so unbelievably different in a way that I did not prepare for.
Yeah.
And I thought I had prepared. I, had done the work, and we went to the classes and we did all of that stuff. And then when the reality finally hit, it was a sea change for me.
You mean when you have that little human being that you're carrying and saying, oh my gosh, my life is so much different today than it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And you don't get sleep that night and
or any other night for the next 6 days.
Yeah, or for the next 40 years too.
There you go.
The problems just get bigger sometimes, right?
Definitely. So let me ask you this tough question right out of the gate. How do you define masculinity?
Oh gosh. It's going to be based. It's not a trick question because I've thought about it a lot. It's based, first of all, on your character.
I agree.
It's based on who you are and how other people see you. It's not based on biology or physiology. It's based on the heart. It's the ability to understand your strengths and weaknesses. It's your understanding of how you influence others and care and respect for others of both sexes. It's based on how you present yourself. The business world calls that sometimes executive presence, which I think is kind of a goofy word. And I teach MBA students, and we have debates about what executive presence truly is. It isn't your charisma or your communications. It's who you are across the board. It's what you leave in a room versus how you appear when you enter a room. So all those things I think contribute, and everything, the character, the values, the intellect, the ability to shape others, the ability to influence others to do the right thing, the portraying of an example that you hope others latch onto. Those are all the things that I think contribute to masculinity. And it's not limited to masculinity because all those things contribute to femininity too.
Yeah, there's probably a way to, it's unfortunate that those words are so tied to a particular gender because, there are a lot of ways in which men need to exude feminine energy and women exude masculine energy, and that's totally appropriate and good. And the kind of diversity of all of that it makes us really, really powerful.
Yeah, it is. And I think when we talk about the strength of men, It can be exhibited in either sex. When you talk
Yeah.
about the nurturing of women, that also can be exhibited in either sex.
Yeah.
Certainly I've tried to nurture our children and the soldiers I've led by finding ways that they can press beyond what they think are their limits. And that has to do with not only strength, but also nurturing them to understand that they're each within each one of them is a diamond that has to be polished. And that's what we're looking at, not just for, in my business, soldiers, but also our children, that we want them to become, well, I'm going to use an army marketing term now. We used to have this very famous marketing campaign of "Be all you can be,"
Yeah.
and I would change that a little bit to be more than you appear to be,
Uh,
and really reach those outer limits.
wow, that I'm really struck by that. Be more than you appear to be is that's a there's a lot there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Because it implies a capability um that surpasses your bravado.
Yeah, well, exactly. You don't have to be loud to be a great leader.
Yeah.
You don't have to be loud to teach your children.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Yeah, and in
sometimes you
fact,
do.
being loud can detract from it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think there are some that see those as male traits and male characteristics. Uh, but really, the book is a reflection of all those things.
Mhm.
What really is the approach you should take in terms of inspiring and influencing and persuading others and persuading yourself to do the right thing, helping others develop while you're self-developing too.
Yeah, I wrote down a quote from the book. You said a real man proves his masculinity by being considerate, protective, concerned, and confident, and by demonstrating it. And I think that is so perfectly put.
Well, thank you for that. That's good. A couple of things came through as I was reflecting on the various journal entries, truthfully, that, I would come in here and begin, in each journal entry from 1991, I would do a much longer reflection.
Right.
And so there was no research involved in this. It was just kind of off the top of your head.
Yeah.
And my wife kids me because every once in a while she would come she would come in and to just say hi or bring me a glass of tea or something. And she would say, most times I was in here sobbing.
I'll
And
bet.
I think it was because I had so many epiphanies in just sitting back and reflecting on things that I had done and had said and had accomplished and had failed at, that in reflecting on all those things, you really kind of put together your life story. And, the comments about leadership and male characteristics and character and what we do and how we choose our values and how we exhibit those values all became much more important to me as I had a chance to reflect on this journal.
I can imagine. Yeah, the reflections are like are 3 or 4 times as long as the entries themselves, and
They
that's
are.
where the real it's really kind of an amazing format that seems to have come together accidentally because you have the original thoughts of the young father who was going to war, not sure that he was gonna come back, and then you have the grizzled veteran, right? With 25 or 30 years behind him being able to reflect on that young man,
Yeah.
and man, what a great, what a valuable thing to be able to look over your shoulder on. It's you've done a real service, especially for those of us just starting out on our fatherhood journey. My kids are 7 and 3. It's a real service to us.
Well,
Uh,
what I'll tell you is I had an internal debate on how I was gonna do this after our son presented me with the journal,
yeah.
that he had typed up. He had taken my handwritten document in a book, and here's just for you, it's on the desk. Here was the original journal with
Wow.
all
Okay.
my writings inside,
Yeah.
and it was just a daily, journal entry on something. I mean, I would wake
Yeah.
up in the morning, as I explained in the book, and just think, what do I know? What do I want Scott and Todd to know about their dad if I don't return?
Yeah.
And I'd pick a subject. Some are very sublime and some are very ridiculous.
Sure.
It goes all the way from values and friendship and love of your wife to MREs and those kinds of things. I mean, it was a hodgepodge of stuff.
Yeah.
So when after he asked me to expand on it with the rest of my life stories, I delayed a month or two because I was thinking, okay, how am I going to do this? Are we going to put the journal entries first and then just write, you know, stuff about my life afterwards?
Yeah.
And then one day I just woke up, and this is when I really started diving in and got excited about it. I thought, I'll just take each one of the journal entries, which are, as you know, are about a page,
Yeah.
and just reflect on that same topic. So it gave me an automatic outline to follow.
Yeah.
And it was so incredibly easy, Shaun, to write this. But each day I would try and do one uh, reflection on a journal entry,
Yeah.
and I just had so much fun doing it. My
That's
my
great.
wife said she'd never seen me so happy in my life, when I was going into the cave here and thinking about life's lessons, you know?
I love that. That's such a beautiful. Let's talk about how the book came about. And so I want to start on the 20th of December, 1990. So given how the first Gulf War played out, it's easy to be surprised that before that happened, we were worried about major American casualties. You write that you were worried that there's a really good coin flip chance that you weren't going to be coming home.
Well, I wasn't worried about it, we were told that.
Yeah.
And, we to set the stage, it was in November of 1990, we were in Germany, with 2 little boys,
Mhm.
7 and 10 years old, and, uh, and we were told, well, there were a couple of units in Kuwait or in Saudi Arabia at the time defending against another attack by Saddam Hussein
Yeah.
in Saudi Arabia. He had already conquered, Kuwait.
Right.
And, but it was, the 82nd Airborne is sometimes called a speed bump because they have no tanks, they have no heavy artillery, and and at the time, the Iraqi Army was the fourth largest in the world.
Wow.
Uh, Saddam Hussein had just finished an 8-year war with Iran, which was catastrophic. Um, he had used nerve gas against his fellow citizens and
Right.
the Kurds in a place called Halabja. So this was not a guy to be trifled with.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. So we were told to watch TV in early December because there was going to be an announcement. The announcement came over our Armed Forces Network television in Germany at the time from CNN, that was relatively new at the time. And it said, it was Secretary of Defense Cheney saying, we're going to send the 7th Corps from Germany to Iraq. Now, the
Yeah.
7th Corps is an organization that consisted at the time of about 140,000 soldiers. Our division was one of those. 1st Armored Division was one of those. So this was the first anybody had heard about it in Germany. There was no advance notice. I think maybe 2 or 3 people knew this announcement was going to come. So for the next several hours, I was exchanging information with different people in our cavalry squadron, a reconnaissance squadron that we knew would be out in front of the division when we eventually conducted operations. And not the next day, but I think it was the day after that, we went into an intelligence briefing. And our intelligence officer in the division said the 1-1 Cav, 1st Squadron, 1st Cavalry, is likely to suffer up to 50% casualties. And my mind immediately went to, holy smokes, I've got a coin flip of coming home.
Yeah.
And I've got a wife that I love and 2 children that I love, and they're young, and I'm going to widow her, and the 2 boys aren't going to have a father. So I started thinking about how I could prevent that and mitigate it. And I came with the idea of writing a journal on different subjects. So we went into that war in 1991, went into combat, suffered some casualties in our unit. I was one of them. When we had 33 soldiers injured from an artillery attack. And when I came back home, here's the spoiler alert that I tell everybody, I did survive, as so did the rest of our squadron. So came back home, and the boys were at that point 8 and 11 because they
Yeah.
had both had birthdays while I was away, and they didn't want anything to do with my reflections of this journal, so I threw it in a footlocker.
Wow.
When they became older and they went to war, I got it out and showed it to them. And they both have had multiple tours in Iraq now since the wars of the 21st century. And one day, about 3 years ago, uh, they looked at the journal, gave it back to me, and I threw it back in the footlocker.
Yeah.
One day, about 3 years ago, our youngest son, Scott, asked my wife, "Where's that journal that Dad had?" And what he did was take it and type it up, and he inserted pictures in a Word document.
Wow.
And in Christmas morning of 2024, we were all here at the house, and the kids had just opened all their packages, and we were suffering from those 4 cups of coffee with Kahlua inside of it that you always have on Christmas morning.
Right.
And the kids were making their Lego and doing their things. And Scott came up to me with a box, handed me the Word document, and I opened it up, and suddenly all the smells and sights and sounds of
Yeah.
the desert from 35 years ago came to mind. But then he said something that was really important. He said, "Dad, my brother and I read this journal and we knew what you were doing. You were trying to prepare us if you didn't come home."
Yeah.
He says, "But you've since had 35 years of experience. You've gone to war multiple more times. You've had new friends and you've moved all over the world." He said, "This was once a gift to my brother and me." He says, "Now you got to make it a gift and something for your entire family because now you have 5 grandsons and 2 new granddaughters, step granddaughters." And he says, "Make it a gift for them." I think, and I've told this to other people, I don't think he believed I would ever do anything with it because I'm very much of a procrastinator. But
Yeah.
once I got my head into it, it became really a gift of love back to him.
Sure.
And it took me probably about 6 or 7 months to write the rest of the book.
Yeah.
And I sent it off to him as kind of a surprise, and he was somewhat shocked, saying, "Hey, you really did something with it," and he loved it
Yeah.
and read it immediately. And we both talked about potentially publishing it, so that's what we've done for other people too. So
I love
that's the
that. Well,
story of the
we're
book.
all fortunate that he did that, and I mean, I could just picture that scene on Christmas morning with the kids playing with all the toys and
Yeah.
the warm mugs of Kahlua and just him breaking out that typewritten book. It's a beautiful scene.
It was. And it also showed, I mean, I think just the closeness that we've had as a family, because when you are in the military
Yeah.
and you move I spent 38 years in the military and we moved 23 times during that
Wow.
period. One time I was out by you. We were assigned to the National Training Center in California.
Yeah.
It's just down the road from San Diego.
Uh-huh.
And when you move your kids that many times and they go through 6 or 7 different schools, and you find yourself, and they left friends and left sport teams and those kind of things and had to start over.
Right.
What we tried to teach our kids were, hey, there's going to be a lot of requirements to adapt in life, but the one thing you can always come back to is family. And so they are best of friends, and I think we're a very close-knit family because we did have those kinds of new environments that were constantly pressuring us and new requirements to get on a new sports team or make your name in a classroom as they have done. So that's part of leadership and family and raising kids too.
The last entry in the book, you have a prayer by General Douglas MacArthur, written when he was the Allied Supreme Commander in the Pacific, I understand.
Right.
And I had never seen that before reading that part of the book, and um, it was moving enough to me that it made it onto my wall
Good.
back
Oh, that's
there.
great. Okay.
You can't read it from there, but and I'll probably put it other places in my house too. I want to be able to share this with my boy. But I'd love to go over this in detail if you're up for it.
I am up for it. And
He
what I'll
starts,
share with you if I can,
yeah, by
it
all
it
means.
it all started when our first son, Todd, was born.
Yeah.
Because this was a prayer that I had seen when I was a cadet at West Point, along with the cadet prayer, which is important to me, and I mentioned in the book, as well as the honor code and all the other things and the values that they teach you at the military academy.
Yeah.
But I saw this MacArthur prayer and I remembered it. And so when we had our first son, I showed it to my wife when he was still an infant, and we both teared up
Yeah.
because it is exactly what you want for your kids.
Yep.
And we kept it on our wall, much like you have it on your wall. But then when our sons got married and they had their own sons, my wife arranged to have it calligraphied,
Oh,
and
wow.
they both have it in prominent spots in their home. So it's a constant reminder to them, and I'm sure their boys are going to see it as they grow up too.
Yeah, I
So
love
let's
that.
dig into it.
Let's dig into it. So it starts, he says, "Build me a son, O Lord, who will be strong enough to know when he's weak and brave enough to face himself when he's afraid."
Yeah.
What,
Um,
go ahead.
I mean, when you know that it's coming from Douglas MacArthur,
Yeah,
and truthfully, I'm not a fan of his. I think he had a little bit too much ego, but he was a great military commander.
sure.
Um, but when you know it's coming from him, you can also translate those words into what he's seen
Right,
in two wars, World War I
right,
and World War II.
right.
And it wasn't just for his son, but he's seen it as being reflected in other men that had served their country. So he was, I think, compiling not only his biological heirs, his sons, but he was talking about all the soldiers who, truthfully, as a commander, they were my sons and daughters too.
Yeah,
They were part of a professional family.
yeah,
So those are the things you look for in people who will do what the country asks them to do. So face himself when he's afraid, brave enough to do that
yeah,
is somewhat important, because
sure.
everyone who goes to combat is afraid.
Yeah, I worry. I mean, I think that true, healthy, excellent masculinity means that you're strong enough to know when you're weak, and you admit that.
Yeah.
And I think I worry that our modern culture, and this is part of the crisis of masculinity that motivated me to even start this entire endeavor. And I worry that our modern culture is cultivating the opposite of that, that it's turning us into this performative culture where the appearance of strength is held in higher regard than actual strength. What do you think about that as a sentiment? And what do you think we can do about it? Or what do we do about it from a tactical standpoint with our own sons?
I actually think that's a great observation that swagger in our society has become a term that people aspire to. They want to show performatively, using your word, which I think is a good one, that they are they are more than they appear to be. But they do it in performative ways as opposed to looking inward
Yeah.
and saying, how can I be better? How can I there's a story somewhere in the book. I don't know if you saw this one yet, and I know you just started reading it, about a guy I met on a plane who was a jeweler, and he bent my ear for an entire overseas flight about,
Wow.
and all I wanted to do was sleep.
Right. I've been
But
there.
but but it was such a fascinating story about diamond polishers and what they do to bring out the value of a diamond,
Yeah.
and how it's intense work. It's hard work because they're small. You have to know the tools of the trade. You can't cut the diamond in a certain way or it will break it and to devalue it. And and I use that as a metaphor for growing other people,
Sure.
that you have to polish the diamond in people that you meet, but you first have to polish it in yourself and let other people help you polish your own diamond. You have to listen and be more receptive to critiques or counselings or finding your own way of admitting when you're wrong. And it takes kind of a brave guy to do that, a
Mhm.
brave person to do that. That's that first line in that prayer says so many things
Yeah.
about what true bravery is and being able to face yourself.
Yeah, and that's a good segue to the next line. He says, "One who will be proud and unbending in honest defeat, and humble and gentle in victory." And it talks to your, the strength isn't swagger, and bravado isn't courage, right? And I mean, you write that elsewhere in the book, and those, strength and courage are something different than they appear on the outside,
Yeah.
right?
We've seen that just recently in the Olympics. I was thinking about that line in the Olympics because
Yeah,
the athletes that I valued, and some, by the way, in our society would call them losers. But the thing that continuously amazed me this year in the Olympics
yeah,
was the the minuscule difference between first place and last place.
right.
I mean, we were talking about hundredths of a second. In some cases, there were ties after a long downhill slalom run. There was a tie for a silver medal. That's unimaginable to me, having
Unimaginable.
having
Absolutely.
been an athlete,
Yes.
and I've lost a couple of swimming races by a hundredth or a tenth of a second,
Yeah.
and you say, oh man, that's what could I have done better? And the attempts at becoming perfect for the athlete
Yeah.
is something that's just amazing. But what's fascinating is the ones with true character that I watched during the Olympics were the ones who understood
Hmm.
that today was not my day. I got second place instead of first by 1/1000th of a second, a nanosecond.
Right.
Um, and yet they were unbending in that defeat. And the ones that won, I thought the ones you could tell who had a lot of character and who had been in the sport for years, and even some, I won't name names, but who had won every single event in their life
Right.
and suddenly didn't win in the Olympics were, they understood why. It was just that day. And a
Yeah.
snowflake hit them in the face while they were going down, and it caused them to be 1/millionth of a second off the first
Right.
place platform, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's always amazing to me when, a bunch of people sitting on our couches are watching that thousands of miles away, and somehow we feel like the people that we're watching are losers. I mean, there are no losers in the Olympics, man. It
Right,
is
exactly.
really hard to get there.
Right, right.
And the fact that you're even in a position to qualify for the Olympics, it means you're in the top 1% of
Well,
most
and
people.
think of that even more. They've spent an entire life
Right.
preparing for this,
Right. And
and
they're at the peak
because
of
of
their
that.
conditioning
Yeah,
and all of that. It's
yeah,
it is the stars have to align in a particular way for you even to be able to go to the Olympics, because it's every 4 years.
yeah.
Yeah.
But if they win,
Yeah.
they're humble about it,
Right.
and because they know how tough it is, and if they lose, they also are unbending, which I think is a pretty important indicator of a person's character.
Yeah, I agree. The next line says, and this one hits me really hard. He says, "Build me a son whose wishes will not take the place of deeds." And then you wrote, "Words are wind, while deeds endure." How do you instill that? Or how did you instill that in your boys? Or
Uh,
how do we instill that in our boys?
um, yeah, that one is really tough, and it talks about instead of being a commentator, being an action figure.
Uh,
That it gets to the so-called man in the arena, the one that suffers the slings and arrows,
yeah.
the one that is fighting for what's right as opposed to just wishing it would happen.
Yeah.
In this age that we're in right now, Shaun, I can't tell you how many people put on my social media page or write directly to me because they've somehow found how to get my address. uh, why aren't the generals doing something about what's going on in our country?
Hmm.
And first of all, it's a lack of understanding of what a democratic society is. But
Right.
secondly, it's a wish for other people to save you.
Yeah.
And the question that I always like to give back, but I don't, is what are you doing?
Right.
What are you doing? What did you vote? Because, 30% of our people voting is not really all that good.
Yeah.
So how are you helping change things that you don't like? Run for Congress, run for something, get on a school board. And I think all of those things, and you ask, how do you, excuse me, how do you instill that kind of things in your child?
Yeah.
My wife, when we were first married, she was this was 50 over 50 years ago now. She had what do they call, like a thing that you knit, what's it called? The a stitchery, I guess it's called,
Sure. Yeah.
that was always hanging in our house that said, "Our children are watching us.
Mm.
What we do speaks much greater than what we say."
Yeah.
So the exhibiting of an example is one way of getting your kids to act as opposed to wish. Uh,
Yeah.
that's my answer to that question.
I had a situation this past Monday. My son, 7-year-old son, he does basketball on Monday nights, and he loves being good at things. He hates being bad at things, and he he loves to talk about how he's the best basketball player. Meanwhile, he's never really played basketball. He hasn't practiced.
Yeah,
He's not good at basketball, and I really struggle with this thing because I do not want to dampen his enthusiasm about
sure.
playing basketball. But I also don't want him I want to convey this lesson about words being win and deeds enduring. And the fact is that we kind of get a dopamine hit when we brag about how we're going to do something, even if we haven't done it yet. And it's not the full dopamine hit we would get from accomplishing the thing, but it's not insignificant either. And you can sort of get hooked on that dopamine hit about, talking about what you're going to do. And it's a really, really negative cycle if you end up getting sort of addicted to talking about stuff instead of addicted to actually accomplishing things.
Yeah, one of the things that is just come into my mind is there's a great quote from Michael Jordan, and he's probably been replaced as the head basketball model for most of the generation of your kids, but
Maybe. Yeah.
yeah, but Michael Jordan was probably one of the best basketball players that ever lived.
Yeah.
And I remember a lot of kids saying, or I remember hearing a coach saying, "You want to be like Michael Jordan?" Yeah, yeah, I want to be just like him, coach. Okay, guess what? There's a quote that Jordan once said that if he missed one day of practice, he noticed it. If he missed 2 days of practice, his coach noticed it. If he missed 3 days of practice, the fans noticed it. So it was important to practice the sport every single day. And
Wow.
that's being an action figure as opposed to being a wisher.
I
I
love
want to
that.
be like Michael
Michael
Jordan.
Jordan is my son's favorite basketball player.
Well, then there you
My son
go.
was born in Chicago, and he's the most famous Chicago Bull. And so I will tell him that quote, and that's going to give me a good tactical way to deal with exactly this issue.
Well, you just don't become Michael Jordan because you want to be.
Right.
You got to put some work effort into it,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Michael Jordan
Yeah.
didn't become Michael Jordan because he wanted to be.
Right.
There's a lot of
Exactly.
people that want to be Michael Jordan, and there's only one of him, and he
Yep.
did it because of that 1, 2, 3 day thing.
Yep.
I love that. Um, the next line is a son who will know thee, talking about the Lord, and that to know himself is the foundation stone of knowledge. Now,
Yeah.
elsewhere in the book, you write, you have a quote by Marcus Aurelius, and that quote is that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Now, and there is so much, I think we're living in an age where there's just a ton of sloppy thinking, right? And just, people believe things are true that can't be true, and things like that. How do we cultivate epistemological hygiene in our boys? Or, heck, man, how do we do it in ourselves? How do we make sure that that our convictions are actually bounded in reality?
Yeah. I think it's driven by a continuous self-assessment. Um, And this is something I mentioned to you before. I teach an MBA, a group of MBA students,
Mhm.
and I teach them strategic leadership and the foundations of leadership. And the first couple lessons are really focused on self-analysis, who they are, what they know, who they want to be, who are the people that light their fires, and what do they represent. In fact, they do 2 papers. The first is a snap quiz in class. I give them 20 minutes to do it, and it's a write down, who am I? And I don't want your accomplishments. I don't want your CV or your biography. I want to know who you are as a person. And then later on in the course, I do another drill like that where I say, who lit your fire? Who's the one, I ask them all to close their eyes and say, think about who's the one person in their life that really lit their fire.
Yeah.
And I give them about 2 seconds, and then I say, okay, open your eyes. And what I find is everybody in the class has someone.
Yeah.
There's an immediate thought on somebody. Often it's 2 or 3 people who lit
Sure.
your fire: aunts, uncles, mothers, fathers, teachers, coaches, those kind of things. And I asked them a question of, what do you think they did that lit your fire? And they all talk about they were honest, they had integrity, they spoke the truth, they developed me, they made my life a little harder, but they saw my potential and they held me to standards. Those are the kind of recurring themes that come about.
Mhm.
And I think in the last quote you just mentioned on MacArthur, it's all about continuously doing a self-assessment.
Yeah.
How did I do that? How did I handle that situation? What did I do? And then not only that, but the other thing I teach these MBA students, I give them an exercise, a homework assignment where they have to go back to their teams and ask their teams, what do I do that makes it hard for you to work with me?
Wow, what a
And of
great
course,
exercise.
and most of them come back and say, well, my teammates didn't want to tell me that. My boss didn't want to, you're doing great. You're doing fine. You're awesome.
Yeah.
But everybody has something that they can improve upon. So there's a constant requirement to say, going back to the polishing the diamond, how do I better polish my diamond, and what input do I get to improve myself on a daily basis? A key essence of leadership is learning and growing every day and developing trust with other people. So those are the things I think, in order to get that, to meet that demand in that line of MacArthur's prayer, there's got to be a continuous self-assessment and self-analysis of who you are.
On YouTube, there's a debrief of some Blue Angels flight team, and
Yeah, I saw that.
okay, yeah, and you watch these guys, and the memory that comes out to me is they were talking about this high speed pass that they do where the 2 F-18s line up belly to belly and they fly. I mean, it looks from the ground, they're 50 feet above the ground, and from the ground, it looks like they're 2 feet apart. It's just
Right.
nuts. And they're approaching at 400 knots. So the total close rate is 800 knots. And it's just unbelievable. It is such a great demonstration of precision and excellence in piloting. And you watch that part of the debrief, and there's a lead pilot that it sort of establishes the altitude that you're going to do the flyby by, and then the other guy just keys off of that guy. And so the lead pilot was talking about, he says, yeah, when I approached the knife edge high speed pass, and I was about 15 feet low on the beginning of the knife edge. And I was just sort of blown away by 2 things. First of all, the amount of precision, like the fact that I fly airplanes, I don't notice if I'm 15 feet low doing anything. And that's just absolutely amazing. But the fact that you're getting so finely ground into the details. To expand on your diamond analogy, you're using such fine grit at this point to polish that diamond. That's where excellence is.
Right.
This guy is still copping to the fact that he was 15 feet low in spite of the fact that he's that excellent at what he does. And that's what it takes.
Yeah. We in the early 1980s, the U.S. Army established our National Training Center in California near you. And part of the dynamic of that is a continuous assessment of what units were doing based on doctrine.
Yeah.
First time that's ever been done in terms of what we now call an AAR, an after action review. So every mission was filmed, radio devices were recorded, we saw maps, we saw where people were because of, tracking on the ground, and you could literally break down an operation and detect every single problem. It's a bigger part of what you were talking about with the Blue Angels,
Yeah.
because after every battle, we would pull everybody together, show them the films, do this, do that, and that's what the Air Force does or the Navy does at Top Gun.
Yeah.
And you saw, okay, here's the mistake I made. I can't do that anymore. It's not right. It's going to cause problems, and it's not as effective as it should be.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things we've got to instill into our personal lives as well,
Yeah.
of taking a reflection. When you have a fight with your wife, both of you go to your separate corners and think about, okay, how did I handle that poorly?
Mhm.
And what should I have done differently?
Mhm.
And again, this is an old guy talking, but I've learned a lot of lessons about how to speak better with my wife,
Sure.
to try and understand her a little bit better, as well as making my own argument a little bit better.
The next line is, lead him, I pray, not in the path of ease and comfort, but under the stress and spur of difficulties and challenge. Our
Yeah,
role as fathers of boys is really to provide those difficulties and challenge, don't you think?
absolutely. And I think I say in my reflection on that line is, as a father or as a parent, you want to make it easy on your kids.
Yeah,
You want to
you do.
help them grow, not fall off the bike, do things, and sometimes, you know, hate to say this as an old grandfather, but sometimes you got to let them get hurt,
Yeah.
so they learn the lesson. It's the hot stove technique.
Yep.
Okay, you got to let them touch it sometimes.
Yeah. As long
But
as there's
but
no permanent damage, I'm happy to let my kid hurt
well, and
himself.
that's the risk mitigation, isn't it?
Yeah.
If they can learn from it, that's good. If they hurt themselves, that's not so good.
Yeah.
But if you just keep saying, "Hey, get away from the stove," they'll never learn. And that's probably a very poor example. But it's interesting that there were times, my wife and I have talked a lot about this. There were times in each of our son's life where we purposely did not intervene
Yeah.
in terms of decision making. We talked about that before we had the show about, the issues of relationships and
Sure.
things like that.
Yeah.
But, sometimes you just got to learn and suffer through things so you can make it better and realize how much you're made of. And that's what that part of the prayer is all about.
Yeah, the next line says, here, let him learn to stand up in the storm. Let him learn compassion for those who fail. And to me, that might be the purest distillation of healthy masculinity I've ever seen. A man stands up in a storm and he has compassion for those who fail.
Right. Yeah. It's a great line.
Yeah.
And it happened to fit because we were in Desert Storm.
Yeah.
And compassion to the ones who fail were, in the case of 1991, were the ones that took their fear beyond fear and put it into the cowardice category.
Uh-huh.
And you can understand why they were doing it.
Yeah.
But that comes back later in life when you realize that sometimes people aren't just built to meet your standard. So sometimes really got to help them do that through a variety of techniques so that, again, polishing the diamond, helping them grow, helping them be the best they can be. Yeah, that's a great line too, isn't it?
You tell a number of stories in the book about the way that you, I don't know, interact. Maybe is I don't know the right way to put it, but with your enemies. So that compassion to those who fail extends to your enemies, and you have this. It seems like you have this respect for the fact that the guy on the other side of the rifle is is also a human,
Yeah,
and he believes as strongly in his viewpoint as you believe in yours, and if he falls, he's failed, and you don't vilify him. You don't. There is you need to have your own. You need to bring your own humanity to the engagement, And
Yeah.
I had a conversation with my boy yesterday. He had a really tough day yesterday, and the nature of the tough day is there's a guy in school that is he's a little bit of a bully to my son, and my son is so this guy's older and he's bigger than my son. My son is very big. He's only in he's 7 years old, but he looks like he's about 10 or 11, really.
Okay.
And so the rest of kind of society sees this 10-year-old kid and they're like, man, why is he acting like a 7-year-old? And the fact is he's 7. And that translates into he gets picked on by older kids. And so there's a kid in a school that is just sort of relentlessly picking on my boy a little bit. I mean, it's not so bad that you can go to the school, but it's not nothing either. And so my son has to deal with this. And we talked about a specific event that happened, something specific that this boy said. And I said, listen, man, you have to recognize that this boy has a tough life and he takes it out on you because he thinks that you have an easy life and
Yeah.
you don't any more than anybody else does. But you've got parents that absolutely love you and you know, you've got a good
Mm.
life. And I don't think this kid does. And I know that it stinks to have to deal with this, but you should keep that in mind.
Boy, what great advice from a father. That is awesome.
Yeah.
And it will build character in multiple ways. I would think that it would build character from the standpoint of him trying to get an understanding of another person, which we need more of
Yeah.
in today's world.
Yeah.
But it will also that character will be uh, that it will reappear in later life. He will remember the kid that picked on him
Yeah.
and how he stood up to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it will come back over and over again. My wife has a story about she's very short. She's 4'11", and she was a cheerleader in high school, and she continuously tells a story about other girls picking on her, making fun of her.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that my wife is all kinds of accomplished, and she's a beautiful woman inside and out, but she keeps going back to that story. So it was a part of her character and how
Right.
she built it, and it's now reflected in how well she treats other people, because she learned lessons that she didn't wanna repeat from that woman that or the girl that was picking on her.
Yeah.
And that's something that your son can probably but it's it's tough when they're 7 years old to say, "Hey, son, you're building character."
In 30 years, you're gonna be really happy this happened.
Yeah,
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 I
that's
remember my
that's
dad saying that to me, and it fell on deaf ears, but he was right.
yeah,
Yeah.
he was, because
Yeah.
it is part of who your character is. Getting
Yeah.
cut from a team or winning the state championship
That's right.
all inserts things into your character that come back over and over again in good and bad ways.
That's right. Yeah. The next line is build me a son whose heart will be clear, whose goal will be high, a son who will master himself before he seeks to master other men, one who will reach into the future, yet never forget the past.
I of that entire line, the one that I'm most enamored with is master himself before
Yeah.
he seeks to master other men.
Yeah.
Um, and again, it goes back to what we've already been talking about, self-analysis,
Mhm.
requesting critique. But the looking into the future is also important. Um, uh, we were just talking about your son not wanting to go 30 years in the future to understand how he's building character today as a
Yeah.
7-year-old.
Right.
But, it is that here's why we're doing some things sometimes. And
Yeah.
as a parent, boy, isn't that the truth too? I
Yeah.
mean, you have to make some hard calls with your kids. And as long as you have an understanding of why you're doing it and what you're doing, the plan for the future of what you're trying to establish in your children becomes critically important.
Yeah. You write in that part of the book you write you have a lovely quote that is integrity provides clarity, vision gives direction, and self-discipline grants authority, and memory teaches humility. And I just love this role of integrity, of vision, self-discipline, and memory. as, the building blocks upon which you can, really build a great life.
Yeah, I think, you just remind me, I don't know if I use this or not, but it's a quote that I always come back to, a yogiism where he once said, if you don't know where you're going, any road's going to take you there.
Yeah, that guy.
And that's the vision piece. What are we trying to achieve
Yeah,
with our life and our children's lives? What kind of lessons are we trying to teach them?
yeah,
Responsibility, accountability, integrity, not lying, the kinds of values that most people respect in others.
right.
Those are how do you those things just don't happen. They
No.
occur.
Mhm.
You can't wish them to be. Um, that's why I think getting a dog and allowing your kid to take care of it is probably one of the better lessons learned because
Sure.
they take responsibility for things
Yeah,
of a living human thing,
yeah.
not human, but a living thing. Yeah.
It's It goes on to say, "And after all these things are his, add, I pray, enough of a sense of humor, so that he may always be serious, yet never take himself so seriously." Isn't that a great vision for when you think of a
Yeah.
great man? You think of Winston Churchill, for example. That's masculinity, isn't it?
Yeah. Not taking yourself seriously and having a sense of humor.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to be around people that don't laugh. I
right.
like people that smile.
Yeah.
And it's especially useful in crisis situations.
Oh yeah.
If you can say, "Oh man, we're in it now," but boy, we're going to come out of it. It's a approach of positivity that
Mhm.
I think we can instill in our children
Yeah.
of looking forward to doing something, even though it's hard, and having a good time doing it. Making the memories that you can always rely on where there's lessons involved. And hey, remember when we did this? And here's what came of it. And then
Yeah.
laughing about it and
Yeah.
having a good time. So
Yeah.
yeah, that is a great way to end this prayer, don't you think?
Yeah. I think so too. He goes on to say, there's two lines left, and he goes on to say, "Give him humility, so that he may always remember the simplicity of true greatness, the open mind of true wisdom, and the weakness of true strength."
Yeah. The A guy gave me a book about 2 years ago that he had written. He asked me to review it, and I was hesitant. I don't know where he came up with my name. He was some university professor at the University of Puget Sound. So he says, "Hey, General Hertling, could you review this book for me?" I said, "Okay, what's the name of it?" And he says, "Well, I'm a history professor, but I put this great research together. The name of the book is Generals and Admirals, Criminals and Crooks." And I thought, wow, did I do something?
Right. I don't know. What does it
What,
mean that I'm
what,
being asked to review this
why?
book?
Yeah. So he said, no, no, no. He says, it's not a slight against you. He says, I just think you would be great in assessing this.
Huh.
So I read this book and there were 7 stories of different generals and admirals through history who had really failed. And it was all because of their egos.
Yeah.
They believed their own press reports. They thought they could get away with things that they shouldn't even try. Similar things like that, or they didn't hold to their professional values.
Right.
And it was fascinating. Each one of the stories, I thought, linked back to an overgrown ego,
Yeah.
which usually comes with rank and position.
Sure.
And what I found is some of the greatest leaders I've worked for in the military were not the ones that puffed up their chest, but they were the ones that, you know, listened and heard, used their eyes and their ears uh, in ratio to their mouth,
Yeah.
4 to 1 in
Yeah.
terms of listening and hearing, or seeing and hearing and speaking in that ratio. And it just shows that you should be forcing yourself to learn from others on a daily basis and be humble about who you are. So
Yeah.
MacArthur did not truthfully exhibit some of those traits, but he certainly wanted to have, and perhaps that was a deflection. Hey, I'm going
Sure.
to grow my kids to be something that I perhaps had a human foible about.
Yeah. Yeah. Which that's all we could ever hope for, right?
Yep.
Is yeah.
Yep.
I feel like like sort of the performative aspects, the aggression, the dominance, those sorts of things are kind of the Dunning-Kruger peak of
Yeah.
strength, right? And real strength is wrapped in humility. If you ever meet someone who's really, really strong, they don't need to tell you how strong they are. They don't need to brag
Be
about, you know,
be more than you
about
appear to be, right?
yeah, yeah. The last line is so powerful, and he says, "Then I, his father, will dare to whisper, I have not lived in vain." And that line, man, that line in the prayer is so heavy, and it hits you. It kind of it places this unbelievable weight of meaning on the father's life, on the character of his son. And when you look back and you look at the men that your own sons have become, was there a moment where you get to whisper those words? When do we get to do it?
Um, you get to do it throughout their life.
Mm,
Um, you know, you can see a reflection, and that's truthfully why I get emotional
yeah,
talking about this stuff,
yeah.
because you can see it when they're 10 years old and
Mm,
they win a prize in school, when they're 16 and they're on a sports team, when they go off and do something great in their 20s, um, and when they come to you when they're 40 and 45, like our two sons are now, 42 and 45,
yeah,
and they still ask you questions. Hey, Dad, how would you handle this?
right.
Hey, Dad, what do you think about this? Hey, Dad, I want to buy a new house. Is it the right time? Um, it was it was interesting. A couple years ago, when our youngest son Scott was he had his two new sons. They were toddlers. One was 3, and the other one had just been born. And the 3-year-old was going crazy in the house and, you know, doing what 3-year-olds do.
Sure.
And he turned to my wife and I, and he goes, "Hey, Dad," he says, "this is kind of a catch-all, but I just want to let you know that I apologize for everything that I ever did to the both of you."
Right?
Because he was experiencing that moment with his kid.
Yeah.
And we laughed about it at the time, but boy, isn't that a father's understanding of how to raise children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, there was, you know, it's just I think it's Mark Twain who said he couldn't believe how dumb when he was 16, he couldn't believe how dumb his father was.
Yeah.
And by the time he was 21, he couldn't realize how fast his father had learned all sorts of things. So so it
Right.
was basically, you know, the difference of a 16-year-old giving you a hard time because you're a boomer and you don't know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
to suddenly they're asking your advice.
Yeah.
So that I have not lived in vain occurs all throughout your life. It's not just at the end.
Yeah.
It's the men that we build. It's how we contribute to our society with great men and great women
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll expand your show a little bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and one of the key lessons that I've had from this whole project has been that I mean, I care very deeply about raising great men, and I've been real public about the reasons I care about that, um, primarily due to the masculinity crisis. And but in order to raise great men, you have to be a great person yourself, and that is they need people to look up to, and that applies whether you're their father or their mother or their aunt or their uncle or just somebody they meet on the street, and so yeah, I mean that the audience of this project is not just men. It is.
There is I want to comment on what you just said because it's wonderful and it's a term that I use a lot. There is a book called Once an Eagle that most soldiers read, and
Yeah.
it's a story of a guy named Sam Damon who is a soldier. He joins the army during World War I, and they follow him through. And he has a best friend in World War II
Sure.
who is killed in action, his best friend. And he repeatedly goes back to his friendship with this guy. Well, this guy has a son, and his son also joins the army. And now at the end of the book, Sam is an old retired general. and the son is a brand new lieutenant colonel fighting in Vietnam. And they have a conversation, and his son's friend is talking about nothing but his career. And he was all caught up in careerism and making the next promotion and doing the advancement and selling out other people. I mean, he was implying that. And Sam says to him, he pulls him aside and he says, Sam says to Joey, he says, Joey, think about this. He says, in life, if it comes down to being a great and honored soldier with a lot of rank or being a good human being, he said, choose to be a good human being, because that is what will make you a great soldier.
Yeah.
And that sums it up.
Yeah. Yeah, you get both things that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you look back on a life dedicated to military service, yourself, your sons, your spouses, it's not just you that has to be dedicated. It's everybody. It's the whole family, the children, everybody. There's so many sacrifices and there's benefits, right? In balance, do you think it was worth it, and why?
I was afraid you were going to ask that question. Somebody asked me the other day that I can't remember how the question was phrased, but it was along the lines of, you've had an interesting life from, I think it was, you had an interesting life from a soldier, a leader, and a family perspective. And they said, which one was the hardest?
Mm.
And I said, being a father. They didn't say family perspective. They said a father's perspective.
Yeah.
And I said, being a father.
Yeah.
And it kind of surprised me. They said, why do you say that? You seem like a good father. And the reason I say that is because I see our two sons who are great fathers. I mean, they are absolutely off the chart kind of fathers.
Yeah.
And I look back at my life and say, I had a whole lot of foibles. I had a whole lot of character flaws as I was younger. And the balance that you just talked about was not there. It was, the profession normally came first.
Yep.
And then the family. And it's a mistake that I made. And I think that a lot of people make too. And it's just because of all the things we just finished talking about in terms of how you think other people see you, what value do they put on you, and what's the thing that you should focus most of your attention on. Yeah. My wife got it right. She's the anchor of the family.
Yeah.
And it's because she also has a quote that she always uses, that the greatest work that you'll ever do in your own home is the raising of your family. Yeah. And I often failed in that. I can look back and be reflective and write a journal about it, but I admit, as you know in the book a couple of times, that I didn't quite live up to some of the things I was saying. And I think we all have to face ourselves in that if we really want to raise great kids. Yeah. And raise men, like you're saying.
As the son of a father who was like that too, my dad, his career was everything to him. It felt even that it was more important to him than we were. Yeah. And I think that, he was of a similar generation to you. And, part that our culture was really about, okay, as a man, you're a provider, and that's really all you are. That's the worth that you bring to the world. And he did that. I mean, he crushed it in spades. But there's one other thing that he did that you did too, which is he married an amazing woman. And my mom, she pulled way more than her weight in that respect. And that was the biggest favor and the biggest service my dad did to me.
Yeah.
And sounds like you did that to your sons too.
Same thing, exactly the same. Yeah. And I'm seeing the sons do the same thing, that they've married good women. Yeah. And the thing that we've seen in terms of relationship and the best kids that can be raised are when you're of like mind. with these kind of things. And I'm not sure how much my wife and I talked about how we were going to raise the kids, but for some reason, I think we saw things the same way. I was a little bit harsher than she was, but that's okay too. I mean, you got to go to mom when dad's being mean to you.
Yeah.
But we were on the same page.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important aspect of raising men, as
Right.
your podcast is named, when the parents really have the common vision. Like from that old movie Drumline of one band, one sound, right?
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
though you might
Absolutely.
play the instrument
Yeah.
differently.
Well, I
But
always like to finish up these conversations by asking everyone pretty much the same question. And that one is, if you could give us just one principle about how to raise excellent men in our modern culture, what would that principle be?
love, just love and develop trust.
Yeah.
Treat them, even though they may be 3 years old or 20 years old, treat them as fellow human beings and understand that all the things that we do in our society to treat others should be applied to our children as well. Teach them on a daily basis. Teach them something new, and make sure that they install that in their brain bank through a variety of ways. And the last thing in that long list of one things that you ask is
Yeah.
have fun while you do it. Laugh at yourself.
Yeah.
When things are failing, go in some special room with your wife and say, "Oh my gosh, did that just happen?" Our son, if I can give this tip, our son, I don't have my phone nearby, but our son keeps a journal on his notes, on his note page on his phone, and we're part of the stream that he sends it to, and it's his two boys and what they're saying on a
Oh,
daily
yeah. I do
basis.
the same thing.
And it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And you can tell the frustration of the parents, but as grandparents, many of the time, we're laughing
It's glorious.
until we cry. It's
Yeah.
glorious.
Yeah.
So yeah, revel in who they are and who they're becoming.
Yeah. I
Those are
love that.
some of my one things.
That is perfectly, perfectly stated. You know, General Hertling, you could be forgiven for just resting on your laurels and sitting on a beach somewhere and, staying out of the fray and just enjoying a glorious retirement. You had an amazing career. And yet you're doing all this other stuff. And I just, I want to let you know that, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your decades of leadership and for sharing the lessons that you've learned. Thank you for the book. It is a really, really great. I wish there were more people who would share with their lives with the kind of honesty that that you have in this book. And so, thank you. Thanks so much for taking it on.
Well, I appreciate it, Shaun. And again, I'm going to say it one more time. It was so good to be with you. This was one of the best conversations I've had in months. So I appreciate your very insightful questions and just your opportunity to have a conversation with me. It was fun. So
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
And thanks
That
for
is
what
high
you're
praise.
doing. Thanks for what you're doing too.
Thank you so much. And if you want to learn more from Mark Hertling, please grab a copy of his book. It's called If I Don't Return, A Father's Wartime Journal. And you can also follow his leadership insights and commentary online. He's a contributor to The Bulwark. He's on Twitter and X, on LinkedIn. And you'll find all of the links to all of those things in the show notes. Thank you for listening to the Raising Men podcast. Until next time, you are a great parent. Raising Men is produced by Phil Hernandez. This episode was edited by Ralph Tolentino.